Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 215 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we're going to build the puffer setup we've been working on. Enjoy. Let's get these started. Going to need to kind of extend way down here. You can see how it's already getting fairly large. That said, we might have to swing up and go this way because we don't want to extend so far down where we get in the way of the bus. So the lowest we can really go is about here. But we'll see. We haven't calculated the rest of the puffer stuff. But it might be a lot smaller than the growing part, I'm thinking. Okay, let's clear out a bunch of stuff. Leave some room. And then let's get this started. Do need to extend the construction zone down here. And it's kind of annoying based on position of all the stuff here, but we can place it down there. And as we build, I am trying to keep robots covering everywhere we might want them, just so eventually our factory will be fully covered. Don't want to cover too much because I'm thinking we might be putting some machines in here. Okay, so we've got to cut 4 units off of this. You notice it's doing a zigzag that it doesn't really need to do. But I guess it does in the middle though, so all is well. Based on their size then, I wonder if you want to prepare to mash them all right next to each other with no gaps. Well, we kind of can't because of these. So probably should pull out these extra pipes. Okay, how many are there? 62, so we can pull out these last ones. Any room for lights? Is going to be in slightly reversed order where the first puffer is coming from this side, but then it's going to be grown on here. And the last one is going to come from this side, but be grown over there somewhere, but oh well. It'll work fine. So that's the gaseous puffers. So now we have something that's a little better to copy. How does that happen? Where you get stuck in there, but you can't get out. But now we can just kind of place this, and hopefully the bot network will expand along with it. So we can do something like this. Running a little low, so another charge pad just wherever makes sense. And we'll keep going for the other 3. And then get the sizes and everything all figured out last. Looks like we are covering a Jivolite patch here. 6.6 million. 9.7 over there. There's a couple around here. It's not that many Jivolite patches, but you know, this is a fairly efficient factory, so we don't grind through resources that quickly. Plus, I have these set to be very dense patches, so it's okay to cover them every once in a while. So I think I will just plop on top here. Okay, that's the 5 of them placed, at least initially. These first 2 are pretty good as is. So you need to get beans and the gaseous puffer in there. See, in the end, this stuff is probably going to be in the way. So that first one is gaseous. Rancid. I think we gotta make sure we're set to the right thing. Gaseous puffer. rancid puffer, blazing, acidic, and corrosive. So then when we clear these out, the only thing that comes out are the first two. And then from somewhere, we're going to have some farms, maybe up here, but also 2 drones coming from over here to deliver some stuff. So beans is definitely one of them. Let's just have 2 belts here to signify those. Although we could make the request now. Let's put this here. And the number of beans we would need is reasonably high. It's kind of too much for a drone, but I also really don't want to have a second farm just for that, since we have them elsewhere. So we'll put 10 drones in there asking for the beans. And it does look like we're going to have quite a few puffers on belts, but to avoid this is probably more trouble than it's worth. Plus, this is fairly dense as far as puffers are concerned anyway, and they're only going to be on one half of the belt, because the food's going to be on the other half, so it is what it is. Let's see, I'll cut this off here, so we can connect the puffers in. So that's going to be the inputs. They're going to come all the way down. And then our output is going to be a whole bunch of random eggs, which we can join with. Let's call this the egg bus. Just one belt of very mixed eggs, which then need to go the long way around and back in. But we do need to have some way of controlling the logic, because we don't want to keep breeding eggs if we don't actually need them. Well, one thing to consider is that the purpose of breeding the puffers is to make the eggshells. So we could have logic to shut down each one of these lines, but we almost don't really want to, because if we shut them down, we would stop producing the eggshells. So really, the limiting factor is eggshells here. That if we are good enough on eggshells, we can stop hatching them. And if we stop hatching them, all of this can block up. This system is designed to where we're basically hatching all 5 types equally and breeding them equally. So there's different points in the chain that you can apply logic to. Logic to this part probably isn't relevant because we want all of these to run, and they all have to run if we want to get the eggshells that we are planning on. It's what happens after with the puffers that is the question. Now, we could just grind all the puffers up and turn them into meat and make them disappear and feed them to fish. That would get rid of the puffers, but it would be kind of a waste. But ultimately, all of this kind of needs to go full speed. The only limiting factor on puffer production is how many eggshells do we have? Because if we're full on eggshells, there's no point in growing puffers anymore. But up until that point, we're going to want it to continue. And there's different ways of putting that logic. You know, we could put the logic all the way down here. But the problem is once that signal got turned on, it would take a long time for all the puffers to make their way up here and then back here again. So the fastest reaction time for the system would probably just to have the logic directly on the input right here, and then we would have to decide how many eggshells do we want. And how about let's go with 1,000 for now. That as long as there's less than 1,000 eggshells, both puffers and their shells will get put in there. And any existing puffer can go to many places. And actually, now that I think about it, this whole thing in the middle is actually going to be fairly complicated. So we probably want to have kind of a bus system here, because we're going to have one puffer of every type, plus their food, plus their eggs. The output of these will be puffers and eggs. So we will want to send the puffers back to where they need to go. And luckily, there's 5 puffer types and 5 filters. So we can potentially use a sorting warehouse right here. And then just have this grab every type of puffer, because only the eggs will go up and through the process. And this is a sorting warehouse, so we don't want this to be particularly large. The puffers go in there, and then they just get sent where they need to go, but we're going to have this central area where we have 5 types of puffers and their foods. It might be a little more trouble than it's worth to have them all on half and half belts. So maybe we should rely on having just 10 belts. And that should fit in here. So there would have to be at least an underground right here. So we'd probably want to move that one up, but it would probably be something like this. So it would look like this or thereabouts. Because not only do we need to send puffers down here to grow, but we also have 2 different processes for them to puff. So we're definitely going to need to have lots of puffers on belts ready to go. So it's probably going to take quite some time for this to fill up. So it doesn't really matter which one's which, although I suppose for consistency, it might be better to have the first one be the first belt here, but the first 5 would be the foods, and then the other 5 would be the puffers. So looks like this is now kind of in the way. And let's see if we can send these puffers on their way, or at least where they would go. Have a splitter. We definitely want puffers to keep going the other way, but for now I'm going to leave it blank. I'll just pick up those puffers so we don't lose them. Oops, and they're all connected, which we don't want that to happen quite yet, so grab the puffers. Maybe unhook it there. Put them back inside. Guess we'll connect all the pipes on the bottom, since there's kind of a lot going on up here. I'll worry about fixing all of those in the end. But the top half of this is fixed. And then it's going down, going in. Then the second one, the rancid puffers, need to go in, and they have their leaves, which is also something that can be sent on a drone. Let's just make it the second thing here. Actually, let's cut it there because we'd want an underground to be in here. I'm worried I'm going to lose these puffers because they're kind of a rare commodity right now. But let's put the rancid ones back in. We're going to be making normal puffers for quite some time until we build up all the others. But we'll cut that off. For now, we probably want to test the system with just these first 2 puffer types, because we are not going to have very many of the others. And they also are smaller. But we'll set this up for rancid. Make sure that the pipes line up, which they seem to. All the breeding recipes are essentially the same, which makes them easier to deal with as far as the gases go. Let's cut this here because these other three need to go down farther. We should have 60 still, which we do. Let's grab 32 and then overlap a few of them. So what do we have here? 88. So we'll overlap a couple more. There we go. We've got a few more. So now we should basically be able to plop this in. Assuming there wasn't anything in the way. Now that we have the general shape of the thing, we can try to get it all completely covered by robots. And actually looking at the amount of stuff that's coming out of these, it's actually quite a bit. Probably pretty close to a red belt because we have 5 of these. So we gotta dump all those puffers back in. And then what's actually remaining, the eggs, are in fairly small quantities, and the yellow should be fine there. Okay, so gaseous is lined up. So the next one would be blazing. We'll worry about getting the belts hooked up with that once we know where the farms are going to go. But we can do acid. And finally the corrosive. Okay, we need to handle making their atmosphere. Let's grab that pin, and probably should keep this near the road since, as we calculated, there's basically going to be an output of most resources. So to minimize the amount of belts, and since we have a road right there, we might as well put it on the end here. Okay, we have this, which is a little longer than everything else, but that's okay, and we'll just put it in here. But I guess if these machines are exactly the right size, but they're not spaced the same, so I guess it probably doesn't matter. We'll just drop it in here with a little bit of gap. This is going to need sulfur dioxide and oxygen. We'll do the sulfur dioxide here. And let's connect the pipes at the bottom. So we got puffer atmosphere. The flow rate is pretty small, but just in case, it's always nice to have a buffer tank in there somewhere. But let's see. This would actually work out pretty well for hooking up the atmospheres. This thing's in the wrong spot for convenient pipe movement. So it should be mostly connected, but I'm noticing some lines that are not. Looks like I just forgot these ones on the ends. We put an inline tank here. And get that hooked up. Okay. The sulfur dioxide gas necessary for this setup is right here. So the sulfur dioxide gas uses the sulfur from processing the acid gas. We won't have any of that to begin with, but that's okay. We can get the process figured out here. Let's get this here. So we're going to have an output somewhere, which looks like the acid gas from right here, which we can apply on all of these. Looking good. So there's the output. It can go anywhere, but why not just put it right here? It will be kind of in the way if these have to expand, but I don't really think they will, because it should all be pretty good setup like it is. So the cracking of acid gas, which we would need 3. And this is a byproduct, so I kind of want to send it through a tank. Let's just use the small inline one. So looking good. And then these machines feed the hydrogen sulfide into a single chemical plant, which I guess we can put right here, making the sulfur. Although I do like the idea of them being kind of spaced out, just so we can have little buffers in here. Then that needs an oxygen input, which we can just kind of do that. And we'll have an output of sulfur, which will just have a little thing there. And we need to handle the catalyst. Something tells me it's going to be a single machine and super easy. Let's do it out here. Oh yes. Barely even worth counting. So we have a belt going up. And then back down. Then we probably want buffer chests in here. Don't really care what they're set to. And then this will have an input. We can make those requests. Silver. 1 drone. Aluminum. 1 drone. Then they will come in and we'll worry about getting it all seated when we're ready to fire this up. See, this needs lights in it. So we took care of acid gas. We created some extras here. Hydrogen fluoride and carbon dioxide. Those I don't think currently have a use in our little setup here. I think they will be used somewhere, but I'm not sure where yet. And I don't want to start sending them back to the main base. So for now, we'll just pump them into some storage tanks. And keep adding storage tanks as required until we are comfortable with where we want to put these resources. I don't know, I just don't want to waste them if I can avoid it. Doesn't really matter too much, but it also can help us to figure out exactly how much of this stuff we're actually making and determine if we actually want to save it or not. So potentially you might have a real long line of storage tanks going down, which is okay. But I just want to put those in there because I want the process to start up, and then after we have more systems, we can figure out where we want to use those resources, because we can use some of them. Like the carbon dioxide could be turned into carbon monoxide and pushed in there for blazing puffers. So we could potentially use it. And this will be an output of sulfur, almost certainly, at least according to this. We are going to have extras and need to send it away. But we also need to generate the oxygen for it. But the hydrogen fluoride can go here, so that is one thing that we can take care of. Looks like I have this set to the wrong pipe there. Because hydrogen fluoride is there. Carbon dioxide is there. But we do need the fluoride. It still looks like we're going to have extras of it. But for now, we'll want to send what we have in there. Oh, really? It's that close? And the carbon dioxide we don't need for anything right now. And now we need to make the sulfur dioxide gas to also put in there, which is just one. But I believe it just needs more oxygen. So it can kind of share a hookup with this one. So we can kind of put it like right there. And then we can just chuck something on about and then take it off again. Although we might want to have a buffer in here. To make sure that it always works. And have that turn on only. The sulfur is greater than 200. So there we go. We have our output now of sulfur dioxide. So let's hook it up. That is there solely to fill these up, so we don't need to worry about having any empty space, at least for now. We might need to modify it later. There's going to be a lot of overflow valves and tanks and logic for all of these chemicals when everything is finally said and done. Then we need to do the air separation for the oxygen. And let's see, where to do that part? Well, we can do these. Hook up the oxygen, and then the nitrogen we can just dump in a flare stack. I think we would need like 2 of them for this. We certainly can find a use for that nitrogen, at least with our puffers, because some of them require ammonia gas, like the rancid puffers. So all of this stuff will be interconnected in the end. We don't want to hook up any of this to the main factory until we've figured out what the extras are. If we just connect it now, then we're just going to have all this gas going left and right all over the factory and just wasting the drone's time. So we kind of don't want to do that. But let's just put some flare stacks in there, get rid of the nitrogen. And then 3 air filters. Well, that much is starting up anyway. So I think that's the full circle here, where we need an input of the puffer atmosphere, which comes from oxygen, which isn't hooked up yet. There we go. So it's getting its oxygen from over there. It's going to get the hydrogen sulfide gas from the acid gas, which is the output, and also sulfur dioxide gas, which it gets from the sulfur processing setup, which derives its source from hydrogen sulfide, which is also the acid gas. And then the last acid gas thing that isn't directly being used is the carbon dioxide. And that's the chain there. This will create... I'm actually kind of surprised that the ores haven't gotten here yet. I guess the drones were sent, they just haven't gotten here. This will send extra sulfur away to get processed, and at this point it will be extra. I don't think I want to send it out... Oops, that's the request. Do the supply. I don't think I want to send it out quite yet. Let's hook this up for now. Say the sulfur has to be more than 600 to turn the drone on. The belt will come from here. But I'll just put the biggest possible warehouse in here. I don't think I'm going to keep it here, but we do want this process to continue. And I kind of want to hold on to that sulfur because we don't want to send it away if it's going to get used for other puffer stuff. So we'll just leave that there, unhooked. So we have the oxygen, but we also need to jumpstart this process. So we're going to need some sulfur to start it. So as long as we dump sulfur in here, it will create that. But then we need the hydrogen fluoride gas. So we might need to have a separate machine here just for the purposes of jump-starting it. So hydrogen fluoride gas. It's kind of actually an annoying thing to send up here. That it's basically just a byproduct. The only process that intentionally creates it is breaking down hydrofluoric acid. Which is fine, it is what it is. So that's made in a chemical plant. This won't necessarily need to be balanced because once we have enough in this system, it will start creating extra. So we only need to put enough in here to get the process started, and then it should just keep filling up from there. I don't know if this acid is on the drone network. If not, we probably need to put it on there just so we can get it down here. It's kind of an annoying thing to send on a drone, but... So the hydrofluoric acid right there. And hydrofluoric acid. I think we got lucky. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but it must be somewhere. Alright, we will request hydrofluoric. Not sure on the drone count. It might take a long time to fill this up with just one drone. So I'm just going to put 10 in there. So this is only here for the purposes of jump-starting this process. So we'll just put the one machine. Might as well put speed modules in there. We'll just put this machine in here. We could potentially unhook it later, but also we kind of don't need to. We can just leave it in place. It might come in handy later. I know I did this a little rough, but oh well. We'll put the tank there just to hold on to that water. Potentially do something with it later. Let's put a pump in. And run a bit of a wire to the storage tanks. And it's this one. We'll probably have to change that number a couple times if we add any tanks to this, but these tanks hold 50,000. Let's just get it up to halfway. So hydrogen fluoride gas is less than 25,000. To fire up. Let's unhook that pipe for now. So it hasn't sent any drones yet. I think it's just sending fuel up here. Okay. All of our ore made it. Let's grab a ton of sulfur. And also some frames. For the catalyst, I'm not sure if we have any extras. It is the kind of thing where I think I was thinking about maybe I want to start making them. But also, they're really not that hard to make. I don't know how much sulfur to grab. It doesn't really matter since it's going to create a surplus of it, so if we grab too much, it'll just get used anyway. It's hard to see those orbs on the ore, but the bots sure see them. Interesting, and I'm not sure how I came to own a couple of repair packs here. They probably were just stuck in the network, and when the robots did some repairs, they just ended up in my inventory. We don't really need the worst ones. Nope, don't fix it. Good enough. Want our inventory to be a little clean, so we can grab a bunch of sulfur. Let's teleport back. It's a little faster that way. And for now, we can put the sulfur in there. So that's running. Making the sulfur dioxide gas, which is getting injected into the machines. Let's put the frames in. It's going a little slow now, but that's just because it's filling up the buffer. Alright, looks like it's about filled up on sulfur dioxide, which is fine. And actually this surplus rate is probably more than what one inserter can do. At least one yellow one, so we'll put a red one in there instead. Looks like the fuel got here. So now it sent the drones out. Not entirely sure where it's coming from though. There we go. There's the convoy. Then where did they get loaded at? I'm kind of curious. Okay, right here. I'm sure we're using it somewhere. Alright, we gotta wait a second for them to get here. Because when they do, that'll be the last component of making the puffer atmosphere. But the other element to this is nutrient pulp. And that will probably come from up above, because it's kind of all the way out here. It's all connected to the same logic. So we probably want to keep it flowing along the same pipes. Is that like a pipe that doesn't go anywhere? There we go. Well, we'll grab the extra pipes out of here to make it look cleaner. And that nutrient pulp is already being produced naturally and has logic connected to it. So as a result, we don't really need to worry too much about it, other than putting a buffer tank in here, because it is going a long distance. So we can kind of send this along here somewhere. And as far as where to send it down, well, would this work? Potentially. Okay, I think most of these are hooked up. Just have to connect everything and see what happens. Luckily the pipe reaches. It's probably another good situation to use a pump. I see a lot of flickering. Presumably that means everything is getting filled up. I guess we'll know it's working for sure if all of these on the bottom have gotten their nutrient pulp. And they kind of seem to. Guess we can hook this belt back up. Did that acid get here? Looks like it. Now I'm going to get rid of the extra drones and just have the one in there, so we're not wasting acid. That stuff isn't easy to make. Okay. We hook it up. All of these are starting to run. Producing puffer atmosphere. I guess we can kind of check it by making sure the atmosphere makes it to the top end of all of these. See, it hasn't made it to these ones yet. It could just be a flow rate thing. Well, the acid's gone. But I guess the number is okay as far as quantity. It's a little low as far as getting everything filled up. Just needs to slosh its way through the pipes, but it looks like it made it to the far end of each one of these. So all refugiums have their pulp and their atmosphere. Let's see how there's a dead space right here. I want to make sure the bots can cover every area. We'll let that run because we are prepared on this front. We do need to get all of the various food items in here. Let's do another request depot for leaves. See, we have 10 drones. Let's put 10 in there as well. Looks like this thing's running away, making our nutrient pulp. It's been a while since we've seen it move. Do we finally have enough seeds for all of these machines to run? Seems like not quite, but it could be that this is a bottleneck. can do a supply depot with these leaves. Let's just put one here. And put a control signal. Probably actually want to hold quite a bit of this. So let's do like 5,000. So that will bring the leaves in, which go on the next belt. This one probably wouldn't even come from over here. There come the leaves already. Let's get the bean set up. Interesting that we're out of lubricant, which seems surprising. Would not expect that to be the case. But we are. I guess we were just using it up and the factory hasn't otherwise been running. Might need a bigger storage tank for this, but it's fine for now. It looks like it sucked up all of that nutrient pulp too. Okay, we need to make the beans. It's a little tricky. We don't need a ton of it. Let's see. Yeah, these two machines by themselves would create a sufficient amount of beans. We can just use this belt right here. Have it go in and do the same. Less than about 5,000. There we go. And it will fill up eventually. So we're getting close. We have completed at least the things that we have calculated in Hellbot so far. But now we have to get the other food types for the breeding. Because right now we're only making beans and leaves. But that's going to have to wait till the next episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.